All right, let's get right into this. We're going to talk about a story that, believe it or not, starts over 100 years ago, but it's as modern and as close to home as your kitchen countertop. And it's got this just chilling name. So, I want you to picture this. It's the turn of the 20th century. You're in Delamar, Nevada. This place was the quintessential American boomtown, right? It just exploded into existence because of a huge gold strike. People from all over, thousands of them, poured into this spot in the middle of the desert, all chasing that same dream. But pretty quickly, the town got this really grim nickname. And it wasn't because of, Wild West shootouts or anything like that. They called it the Widowmaker. The killer wasn't some outlaw. It was the air, the very air they were breathing. Now, I want you to hold on to that thought, because we're about to fast forward to right now. 90% and then some. So what is that? Well, that's how much crystalline silica you'll find in a lot of those popular engineered stone countertops, the ones that are everywhere today. And that number, that's the thread. That's what connects this old ghost town in Nevada to a massive global health crisis that's unfolding as we speak. Okay, so to really get how this all connects, we have to break down the science. We need to look at the anatomy of this killer dust and the disease it leads to, which is called silicosis. So that Delamar dust they talked about, it was crystalline silica. See, the gold was trapped inside this rock, quartzite, and back then, water was super scarce out there, so they just crushed the rock dry. When they did that, it kicked up this deadly cloud full of microscopic particles that are basically like tiny shards of glass. You breathe that stuff in, and it's lethal. And here's the kicker. It is the exact same dust that gets created when workers today cut and shape those engineered stone countertops. And this is what that dust does to a person's body. It's a brutal, four-step process. First, you breathe in these tiny, tiny particles. They get past all your body's defenses and lodge themselves deep inside your lungs. Step 2, your immune system goes on the attack, right? But it can't get rid of them, so it just causes this massive, damaging inflammation. Then, step 3, your body tries to wall them off. It forms permanent scar tissue around every single particle. It's called fibrosis. And finally, the fourth and final step. That scarring just spreads and spreads until your lungs become stiff. They literally lose their ability to breathe. You just suffocate. And this right here, this is the whole point of what we're talking about. This isn't just some sad story from the history books. It is a lesson that we completely failed to learn. It's the same exact story, just echoing from those gold mines in the 1890s to countertop workshops right now. Think about this. At its worst, there were over 400 widows living in Delamar. 400. That nickname, the Widowmaker, it wasn't a metaphor. It was literally a census count. It was a direct result of that dust. Okay, now jump back to today, right now. In California, if you look at the countertop workers who've been diagnosed with the most aggressive form of this disease, 1 in 4 of them is on a list waiting for a lung transplant. 1 in 4. The numbers might be different, but the tragedy? It is absolutely identical. I mean, listen to this quote from a recent health study. It just says it all. These are not men who worked underground in 1895. These are men who were cutting kitchen countertops last year. It just hammers it home, doesn't it? This is not history. This is happening to young people right now. And what's truly terrifying is that the disease has gotten faster. Just look at this breakdown. Back in Delamar, the miners usually got what's called chronic silicosis. It was slow, progressive, took 10 years, maybe more, to really develop. But today's workers, they're getting acute silicosis. Why? Because that engineered stone has such a high concentration of silica. This version of the disease is incredibly fast, it's often fatal, and it can show up in just a few years, sometimes even just a few months. And all of this leads to this central and honestly the most infuriating part of this whole thing. It's a paradox that you just have to understand to get the full picture. First things first, let this sink in. Silicosis has no cure. Period. There's no pill, no treatment, no medicine that can undo the damage. Once you're diagnosed, that's it. It's a life sentence. The scarring is permanent, it's irreversible, and it just keeps getting worse over time. The only thing that can be done is a full lung transplant. And now, here's the part that should make you angry. Every single case of this disease that has ever existed, from the very first miner back in 1895 to the countertop fabricator today, was 100% preventable. This is not some tragic, unavoidable accident. It is a catastrophic, total failure of prevention.
And how do we know it's preventable? Because we have known how to stop it for over a century. Back in 1899, after hundreds of people died, they figured it out in Delamar. They started using water to keep the dust down. And today, the main solutions are exactly the same. Use water when you cut, have good ventilation, wear a proper respirator. The simplest, most basic solutions have always been right there in front of us.
So that brings us to the big question, right? If we've known about the problem, and we've known about the solution for this long, what are we actually doing about it now? Let's just compare two moments in history. Back in Delamar, it took about 200 deaths before they finally did something. Now, let's jump to 2024. Australia just became the first country in the world to completely ban engineered stone. Why? Because the data showed the rates of disease were just catastrophic. Now, you could argue that in both cases, the action came way too late. But what Australia did, that sets a whole new standard for how seriously we need to take this. And this quote, man, it just wraps it all up, doesn't it? The machinery changed, the negligence did not. We went from these huge, loud stamp mills to high-tech diamond saws. We went from digging for gold to building beautiful kitchens. The technology is completely different, but the fundamental failure to protect the people doing the work, that hasn't changed at all. And that brings us right back to where we started. If you go to Delamar today, the headstones are still there. They're a silent testament to this whole story. The lessons are literally carved in stone. So the real question isn't just about what the widows of the Widowmaker would have to say to us. The real question is, now that we've seen history repeat itself in the most tragic way possible, what are we finally going to do about it?